Well, hello, everybody, and welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Thursday to you, and welcome to Live with Leslie. And I am Leslie Vitel, and I am so happy to have you here with me today. So, if you are an integrative, functional health professional, and if you're finding that your patients or clients are looking for a healthy, mycotoxin-free, mold-free coffee option, you are in the right place. I got to tell you guys, I am super excited about what we have lined up for you today because, as many of you know, I am a huge coffee fan. Huge coffee fan. It truly is one of my favorite things. So today, got a special treat in store for you. We are going to be chatting with Andrew Salisbury, and he is the CEO and founder of a company called Purity Coffee. And we're going to be talking about the importance of choosing mycotoxin and mold-free coffee for improved health. So we're going to kind of take a deep dive into that aspect. We'll be chatting about the positive effects against neurodegenerative disease, such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, as well as touching on heart disease and even the role of coffee in cancer. So lots of good stuff. So again, for those of you that are just joining, welcome. I'm Leslie Vitel, and I am a practice growth expert and mentor specifically for health professionals in private practice. And as many of you know, I help my clients to attract more of the right fit clients, sell more programs, and ultimately grow a profitable practice while integrating multiple streams of income. And so we will be chatting with Andrew about, of course, the benefits of coffee, but also I would like to pick his brain a little bit about how we can position this as an opportunity to build an additional income stream in your practice as well. So with that background, I want to give a nice, big, warm welcome to Andrew. Andrew, welcome. So happy to have you here today.
Thanks for having me on the program. It's great.
So excited. So Andrew and I were chatting a little bit before we hit that live button, and I was sharing with him that I could maybe be one of their biggest fans in terms of Purity Coffee. So I discovered Purity Coffee actually back in around February, March of this year, 2023. And I was at the Integrative Health Symposium in New York City and was chatting with a colleague who, somehow we got on the topic of coffee. And she shared with me that Purity is the only coffee that she can tolerate. So that really inspired me to try it. And I can't get enough of it now. So how about if we kick things off? I want to hear more about like the details of, the specifics around the studies and, all the great benefits of coffee and specifically Purity. But let's start our conversation today. I'd love to hear a little bit about your backstory, right? I always find that super interesting. I know we were both sharing that, just how fortunate we each of us feel in terms of the work that we're doing and how much you love your work. So tell us a little bit, how did you end up in this place?
Yes, I'll give you the shorter version of a long story, but
Okay.
you know, coffee was never my background. I had a software company in Latin America. It was in 5 different countries. It couldn't have been more different than a bag of coffee. I mean, it was, sales that would take 18 months, very cumbersome sales, and sold that company. And then I took about a year off with my wife and daughter, and we traveled, and we just had an amazing time. But during that travel, Amber started getting some health issues, and she was drinking a lot of coffee to sort of like motivate to get her out of bed in the morning, because the result was very low energy. So we tried lots of different things, but during the course of this, one of the things that came up is that I tried to convince her foolishly that she should give up on her coffee. And her attitude was like, I need serious evidence if you're going to get me to give up on my coffee, because as you can tell, I'm English. I was a tea drinker. I was trying to motivate her to give up, the idea of 1 foot on the accelerator, 1 foot on the brake. She needs to find a way to let her body react. And so anyway, cut a long story short, I met 2 professors at the Institute of Coffee Studies in Vanderbilt. And I thought they'll give me the evidence. They'll give me all of the proof necessary to show that coffee really isn't good for you. And literally, they did the opposite. They gave me a long shopping list of the health benefits of coffee, starting with the fact that it's the #1 source of antioxidants in the American diet. So if you drink coffee, you get more antioxidants from your coffee than you get from kale or blueberries or wheatgrass or any of these other things. One, because it's very high in antioxidants, but number two, because you do it every single day. I mean, it's the supplement you never forget to take, sort of thing.
Yeah,
So
you don't have to like you don't have to remind yourself, right?
that's right.
It's literally the first thing we do.
Nobody ever says, "Did I drink coffee this morning?" It's like you're sure you did.
You know it. Exactly.
So
Okay.
so the
Interesting.
end result was she just gave they gave me a list of the health benefits, but and they also gave me the things that we should concentrate on if we care about health as a North Star. But there was really no company that was making every decision based on health. And so that's why I thought there was just, a really interesting avenue to explore.
Oh my goodness. So, needless to say, she got a lot of evidence to keep drinking her coffee.
She did. I
I'll-
lost that argument.
you definitely did there. I love it. Yeah, I'd be hard pressed. That's why I get very excited whenever I see any kind of post or study that comes out that talks about the benefits of drinking coffee. Because I got to tell you,
Yeah.
yeah, I have no intention of ever giving that one up, especially after I discovered purity. So how is it different? How is purity different? I alluded to some of the differences in terms of, it being mycotoxin free, mold free. Can you expand on that a little bit in terms of, how this particular coffee is different than, maybe what we would pick up at the supermarket?
Yeah, and it's a series of things. It's more like an orchestra than an individual, instrument. And so there's no one thing that's going to affect it. But what we do know is this: there's positive compounds we want more of. There's negative compounds we want less of. And our North Star was that we're going to make every decision based on health without compromise to cost or to flavor. It could end up being taste like ditch water and be $200 a pound, but we wanted to see what would happen if we made every decision based on health. So the big ones are this: the thing you want in coffee, the #1 health benefit of coffee comes from its antioxidants, and that comes from a thing called chlorogenic acids, CGAs, or trigonylene. There's other positive compounds like cafestol and kawiol, which are the oils or the lipids on coffee. But the interesting thing is you can source for them. In other words, the first thing that we did is we lab tested coffee from around the world. It had to be organic, regeneratively farmed, because we didn't want any of those sort of pesticides and issues that would come from, poorly processed coffee. But we were looking for the ones that were highest in antioxidants. And then we designed a roast curve to maximize or to keep those antioxidants in the coffee. So, nobody does this, but when you roast coffee after the first crack, the antioxidants or the CGAs start to diminish. So a very dark roasted coffee has a lot less antioxidants than a light roasted coffee. But a light roasted coffee, you have acrylamide on the front end that's created, which you want to minimize. And on the back end, you have a thing called PAHs, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, that come from any burnt food. So there's a bit of a sweet spot that you want to create in the way that the coffee is roasted. But I'd say more than anything, the things you want to avoid. Coffee is the most heavily treated crop on the planet, so it needs to be organic. If you look at a coffee cherry, it looks a little bit like a grape. When it's sprayed, it's just as porous as a grape, and so it's not one of these foods like let's say that has a tough skin that means that it's going to avoid the pesticides from being ingested inside that fruit. So it has to be organic. It has to be specialty grade, which is the highest grade of coffee, because you want to minimize any of the defects that naturally come in coffee. Then it needs to be handpicked, hand selected, bird friendly, and all of these like monikers like bird friendly. While we care about the environment, more than anything, it's an indicator that the coffee is grown in its natural habitat, which we know from past experience and lab testing is higher in chlorogenic acid. So, there's quite a few things to look for. Mold and mycotoxins are actually one of the easiest things to solve for us. You should absolutely look at it, but it's not a complicated task for a company to do that.
Oh, interesting. And just FYI, guys, I took a quick photo. I have a very full stock of I think all three. The only kind I don't have at home is decaf.
Yeah.
I think these are your three main brand or types of coffee, right? You've got the Ease, which is a dark roast,
Yep.
Protect, which is a medium, and Flow, which looks like a medium as well, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
Protect is formulated for liver health. So what we're doing is we're following the science of we're following the science for liver health, like all the areas that coffee can help with. Liver is one of the most profound ones. Dr. Sanjeev Chopra, who's on our advisory board, was the last dean of admissions for Harvard Med School. He's a liver surgeon, and he says if you drink 3 to 5 cups of coffee a day, there's a 20% lower chance of ever getting fatty liver, liver cirrhosis, or end-stage liver disease per cup of coffee from the baseline. So not 20% in total, per cup of coffee. So I mean, this is coffee in general. I mean, this is the benefits of coffee on the liver. So we formulated our coffee to really sort of maximize that.
okay, all right. Yeah, because I am seeing that each of these different types of purity kind of touts a different health benefit. One being easy digestion, as you mentioned, Protect for liver vitality, and Flow for overall health.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Like I guess how do the different types differ
Yeah.
to really kind of capitalize on those different health benefits?
Yeah, there's a few different levers that you can pull. I mean, the way the coffee is processed and the way the coffee is roasted. Assume that all of the coffees reach the same high standards. They have to be organic, regeneratively farmed, hand-picked and hand-selected, all that sort of stuff. But in a darker roast coffee, there's an interesting thing. When you have to roast the coffee dark, but not so dark that it creates PAHs. What it does is if you're selecting a coffee that's really high in CGAs in the first place, which is the antioxidants, those antioxidants eventually convert to chlorogenic lactones. And the chlorogenic lactones are very healthy for gut health and the blood-brain barrier. So a darker roast support for brain health and for gut health. It's been shown to have, since it has more chlorogenic lactones. For a lighter roast, which is the Protect, which is for liver, that has our highest level of antioxidants of any of the coffees, so the highest amount of CGAs, and it's processed in a thing called honey processing, which is the way that you process the coffee, and it means that it's a fruitier, easier coffee to drink. And so basically, you want to drink as much of that as you possibly can, because dosage is really important when it comes to coffee for the liver. And then our regular blend is sort of the mixture. It's our starting blend. We really only started, for the first 2 to 3 years, we only had one coffee. It was, and that was it. That was the flow. So.
Okay. And when was this company founded?
2017, we sold our just end of 2016, first of 2017, we sold our first bag of coffee. It took about 2 years research and development, just really. I worked with Professor Adriana Ferrar from the University of Brazil. She's head of nutrition, and she basically took me through every step of the process, from soil to the cultivars of coffee, all the way through the roasting, making every decision based on health. That took us about a couple of years, and then we lab tested our coffee and measured it against like the top 49 brands, and that's when we felt like, okay, now we're really validated.
And where are the beans grown?
So we've got a very different process, since we don't. Our process isn't looking for coffee that just tastes great. Taking green coffee and turning it brown. We lab test our coffee from around the world for the highest in antioxidants, and we don't pick the coffee unless it beats the standard that we've already set before. So There's been some shortcuts over the years, though. The shortcuts are we found two or three really good farmers. So we've got, Nicaragua, we have Brazil, we have Colombia, but we still look for new coffee that reaches that same high standards, but we exclude those coffees that don't have, the highest CGAs in the coffee. So we're not as fixated as much on the location as we are as the standards that coffee has to reach.
I understand. Okay, let's dive in a little bit deeper about this whole mycotoxin
Yeah.
um, thing, right? Why? And you touched on that already, indicating that it at least my takeaway was that it's not super difficult to do that, right? In terms of processing. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, I think it's hugely important,
But
but it's
hugely
not.
important.
That's right. And what I really would hope is that we create new standards. So that this is a requirement that everybody, the doctors who work with you and their patients are a little bit like the canary in the mine. I mean, they actually see some things happening and a sensitivity to some of these mycotoxins and mold and heavy metals. So they should be talking to their producers of coffee and saying, I need to know that they're following food safety standards. Because it's a relatively easy test to do, but a lot of these producers don't want to do it because it means they would have to reject coffee that doesn't reach the standards. So the big takeaway is this. A container of coffee for us costs us a few $100s to test the whole container of coffee. It's one of the cheapest tests we run on our coffee. Everybody knows on the producer side not to send us coffee that doesn't reach the highest level of standards, but it's an easy test, and you can make sure in your order of that coffee that you're making sure that it reaches that standard. I would just encourage more people to ask their coffee producers to provide that standard, because there's no real reason not to do it. In Europe, for example, they have standards for like ochratoxin A and mycotoxins, and they don't have any standards in the US.
Oh
So,
my gosh,
it's
that's
the
terrible.
FDA has no food standards for ochratoxin A. So if somebody thinks that the coffee isn't going to pass muster by sending it to Europe or Asia, which also has standards, you're going to get the coffee, because you don't have
Oh,
standards. So I guess what I'm saying is it is a very easy test to do. We have to raise the bar a little bit. It's a
yep.
super important test to do. You shouldn't be having moldy food. One of the problems, as well as we talked about earlier, is that if mold is allowed to develop on coffee, it's not the mold is a problem, it's that the mold is eaten by mycotoxins. And so the mycotoxins are basically eating the food, which is mold. Once mycotoxins develop on coffee, it's very, very difficult to eradicate it. People think about a burn step or a kill step, with roasting of coffee, but you have to roast coffee to such a high level that you basically eradicate most of the antioxidants that you want, and you make a very dark roasted coffee, and that has its own set of problems. So we just can't have, mold or mycotoxins at any stage.
Right. Okay. And yeah, and we were also, before we hit that live button, we were talking about how so many people out there nowadays are really struggling with, living in a moldy environment.
Yeah.
And I mean, just a lot of health challenges surrounding that. And they spend so much money and so much effort in the, renovation
Yeah.
process. And yet they go and just drink normal coffee, right?
Yeah.
Without really considering,
Yeah.
is the mycotoxin load I'm ingesting through my daily coffee.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a real it is a problem in the industry. The good news is it's very easy to solve, but the problem in the industry is we've got crops that are coming from humid climates, and they're put in bags and they're transported for a long time. And if the humidity is not erased at destination, so mold or mycotoxins never develop, then it can be a real issue. And so, it's just about raising standards a little bit. And I hope that every coffee company is going to have this standard pretty soon.
Me too. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the research. Can you give us a little bit of insight in terms of, the research that not only inspired your brand, but also that really like the brain health research, any kind of new emerging research that our audience here would, do you think, find interesting?
Yeah, it's a big subject. I mean, the first thing I would say is that coffee is one of the most well-studied foods on the planet. There's over 19,000 studies on the health benefits of coffee. So, there's observational studies in vitro. There's a huge number of studies. And what's interesting about those studies is that they're talking about the antioxidants playing a central role. So it used to be in the 60s, when they first did a lot of these studies, they were saying, oh, coffee causes cancer or coffee causes heart disease, but they didn't sort for the fact that these people were also smoking and drinking. And the moment they actually took those out of the equation, the findings reversed, and they realized, wow, coffee can have this impact on 6 forms of cancer, overall longevity, type 2 diabetes. I mean, this is one of the statistics that blew me away. The nurses study, and this was basically, I think, around 25 years, well over 1.2 million people tracked over 25 years. It shows that if you drink 3 to 5 cups of coffee, you have a 45% lower chance of ever developing type 2 diabetes if you're pre-diabetic. I mean, it's shocking. I mean, given the fact that we spend a third of our healthcare dollars on diabetes, I mean, this is something, $250 billion. It's shocking that there's something that we do every single day that people are not really paying attention to. They're not saying like this really could be a health food. So we're doing a lot of work as well with Alzheimer awareness. The science yet is, I mean, we're really in the very early stages of what coffee could become, but we're working with different cultivars of coffee, the way that the coffee is roasted. And the most interesting thing that we're doing right now, which is sort of uncharted territory, is about 1.5 years ago, we bought our first farm in Colombia. And so what we're doing is we're experimenting on a soil level with different things that we can add to the soil so that the coffee is grown in a way that's good for the environment and produces the most nutritious coffee for health. And so that's really interesting territory. So I think I'm waffling a little bit in terms of health benefits. I would say that that because it's an antioxidant, because it reduces the inflammation in your body, it seems to help in so many different areas. Like, why is liver attached to pre-diabetes, to gout, to tooth decay, to I mean, so there's a very long list of the health benefits of coffee, and it seems to be linked to the anti-inflammatory properties of antioxidants.
So that is so awesome. I mean, again, music to my ears. So for the consumer who really wants to make more informed choices when purchasing coffee, what advice do you have? What do we look for?
Yeah.
In terms of deciphering the quality, in everyday life.
Yeah, I use this as sort of analogy when I think about if my wife is traveling, what I want to do in terms of telling her, where would you get a cup of coffee if you needed it? What would you look for?
Okay.
And so it starts like this. Go to a local roaster. Go to a roaster that imports the coffee, not a big chain. There's a lot of reasons why a big chain wouldn't work as well for you if you care about health, just because their job is to make all coffee taste uniform. So they want the coffee in Seattle to taste the same way as the coffee in Singapore, and that often means burning it to a level that you lose a lot of the antioxidants, but it all tastes uniform. So the first one is, work with your local roaster, look for coffee that needs to be certified organic. And it can't just be, well, it's more or less organic. They don't use pesticides. The whole chain needs to be organic. And that's the value of a certification, because you don't want a coffee that has pesticides next to a coffee that is, sort of organic sort of thing. And so certification matters. So it needs to be specialty grade. So you can have great organic coffee, but if it's not specialty grade, it's of a lower standard, you're going to have things like insect damage, chipped or broken beans. All of those things can cause problems in the roast because they're smaller particle sizes and they create sort of different compounds you don't want. And you want a medium roast. So organic, specialty grade, medium roast is likely to have the most antioxidants, the least acrylamide, the least PAHs. And if you're really just, you're fixated on just an amazing cup of coffee, look for labels like Smithsonian bird friendly. Again, not a picture of a bird, something where it's literally Smithsonian bird friendly, because they'll measure, that's the highest standard of organic coffee you can find. They'll measure things like shade trees and the amount of migratory birds, and all of that is an indicator that the coffee is grown in its natural environments.
Okay. Love that. Love those tips. So, how can wellness professionals work with you to, help spread the word?
I think there's a really interesting opportunity. I think about all the things that we can do that have the highest leverage point, the biggest impact. And given something that you do every single day is not really paid attention to, in a lot of cases, people don't pay attention to their coffee. It is great advice to give a patient to get them to move to a higher quality coffee that they can enjoy the taste of. It's going to be better tasting coffee, but it's also going to be good for their health. The inflection point there, or the sort of like the leverage point there, I guess, is the fact that, it's an easy advice. How many doctors give advice and it's like, oh, I have to give up this, I have to give up that. This is advice that they're going to be happy to hear. And also, I think it has a real impact. So I think paying attention to anything that we do every day. I mean, if you're eating eggs, if you're drinking coffee, these are the sort of things to pay attention to. They're the two most consumed foods. Pay attention to those things. So I feel like the opportunity is there. We're looking for wholesale affiliates and groups that want to work with us. And I think it's just a nice, easy introduction for doctors.
Incredible. And I know you guys offer shall we say, like a nice little discount for healthcare practitioners. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So it's
Yeah.
we've got everything on our site. There's an application just for a wholesale discount, but that's sort of where we've been focused as well. We don't necessarily want to be where coffee is. We want to be where health is.
Okay.
We want to be where doctors are telling patients that food is medicine and that they need to pay attention to the food that they're consuming, because that's squarely where we are as a company. We want people to recognize that not all food is created equal, not all coffee is created equal, and that paying attention to some of these things makes a big difference.
Absolutely. Okay. I love that. Now, I think you guys have an affiliate program as well. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So, can you tell us just a little bit about that?
Not offhand.
Okay. Okay. No worries.
I
I
really,
think that, based on my notes, it looks like practitioners can join Purity's affiliate program and earn a 15% commission.
yeah.
I think that's the way it works. So, guys, if you want to learn more about that, I do have a special link for you. You can go to, and I created a bit.ly. So all you have to go do is go to bit.ly/Leslie Purity. And that's LESLI PURITY. So Leslie Purity. So go check that out. I can certainly attest to, like I said, I think your biggest fan at this point. I really can't drink any other coffee. I've tried. I've
Yeah.
tried. Yeah, and it just is like, oh, I can't do it. So once you try this coffee, I think you will love it.
Yeah.
And you'll really enjoy it. You know that you're doing something good for your health, and very importantly, pass it along to your clients, right? Let's spread the word with all these amazing health benefits, and just the quality is just surpassed anything I've ever had before. So check out that link and definitely take advantage of the professional discount that they offer. I think that will sit very nicely with everyone here. Any final words of wisdom as we start to wrap up?
I think the only thing that I would say is I would encourage people to look at our testimonials that are on our site. And the
Okay.
reason I would encourage them to look at that, and I do it every single day, is that, one of the things that we didn't necessarily expect was that people would feel differently in their bodies as a result of drinking coffee. We didn't know if this was going to be almost like a supplement, like a fish oil. We make every decision based on health. We're being, really critical, but we didn't know if people would actually notice a difference. And I think the big aha moment for us is that we've started to recognize that, like you were saying, people can't drink other coffee after they've tasted our coffee. But the way that some of the symptoms that they attributed to just normal life have started to drop away. And again, I'm not making it sound like a panacea. It's just that if you're drinking coffee, why not pay attention and drink the best for health,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I mentioned to you, I learned about purity through a colleague who said she can't drink any other brand because of some GI challenges.
Yeah.
So there's definitely something to be said. So even for patients that want to drink coffee, but they can't because of whatever else is going on, this could be a great option for them and a healthy option, getting all those awesome antioxidants back into their diet.
That's right.
So, all right, guys, I'm going to repeat that link once more. That is bit.ly/Leslie Purity. And that's LESLI PURITY. So go ahead and check that out. And gosh, this was really an incredible conversation. I learned a ton. And I want to thank you again for spending your time with us. Really
That's my
appreciate
pleasure.
it,
This was great.
Andrew. And I hope to see you at some of the upcoming conferences.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Coming up, maybe integrative health symposium or one
Yeah.
of those in the near future. I'll
I'll
definitely
definitely be at those
Wow.
events.
All right, sounds good. All right, everybody, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will look forward to seeing you next week. All right, bye for now.